All right. Hello and welcome to Soul Star Light Up. We are here, episode 4, with my beautiful guest, Lauri Ingram. Lauri is a good
Hello.
friend and she is an extremely talented healer. So, let me just tell you a little bit about Lauri. So, Lauri Ingram is a seeker trained in various alternative and complementary healing modalities, including contemplation, meditation, creativity, and crystal energy. After 40 plus years in a career in corporate IT, she now helps clients explore their spiritual selves, heal past traumas, and connect with their higher selves. She's an advanced crystal dreaming practitioner as well as a cosmic smashbook guide. Lauri is also an ordained interfaith interspiritual minister and certified interspiritual counselor, and has been awarded Natural Nutmeg 10 Best Wedding Wire Couples Choice and the Not Best of Weddings Award. That's pretty darn cool, Lauri. Thank you
It's a
so much for being
mouthful.
here.
I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I
Mhm.
appreciate you and your time.
Mhm.
So we were chatting a little bit before we got on, and really for me, I love doing this because I love to hear people's stories. So you have a very interesting story, being in the corporate world for 40 plus years
Yes, a long
in
time.
IT, where we don't think
Mhm.
about like healing and spirituality, and it's kind of very it's black and white, and
Right.
So tell me a little bit about how you transitioned into this. Tell me about
How
your
I
journey.
ended up here. Right.
Yes.
Yes. That's a very good story. So yes, 40, oh yeah, more than 40 years in corporate life, but it was really about 10 years ago that I realized I was really in survival mode. Um, I liked what I did and I loved the people I worked with, but I was literally just working, going home, and working and going home. And I I recognized that there was something really missing.
Mhm.
Wasn't quite sure what it was. The 20 years before that, my marriage ended, and I was a single mother and started over financially, and I really struggled a lot through depression and anxiety for a long time. But when I realized that I literally was just surviving and I was 55, I said, okay, what are you going to do?
Mhm.
I just started exploring, and it started with meditation. Deepak Chopra, Oprah Winfrey, 21-day meditation,
Yes.
kind of started me on that path. And I realized that I really needed to create space for
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
And I didn't really knew what that meant because I was
Yeah.
new to anything spiritual. I really had put my spiritual life on the back burner for a long time after being raised Catholic. So
Mhm.
it just opened me up to all sorts of things. And I really started to hear myself, probably that inner me that had been talking to me for a long time. I
Mhm.
finally started to hear, and I just started exploring,
Yeah.
trying, as we were talking about, tried all the things,
Right.
and I followed what resonated with me, and everything just started to unfold from there
Yeah.
pretty organically.
Right. Right. So that's some of the things that I talk to my clients about, right? Following those breadcrumbs. So besides the meditation, what
Mhm.
else like affirmed for you that okay, this is the path I need to be taking? Like we're talking corporate IT to like,
Yes,
stuff that can't be seen or touched, right? Like,
exactly. Well, I think there's a couple of things that happened at the same time. I started. It was a couple of different paths.
Mhm.
When I started my meditation journey, the same time I worked for Aetna, large insurance company that was very, very open to mindfulness and things along those lines. And I had the opportunity to be trained as a mindfulness advocate. So even though I worked in corporate IT, I started to lead meditation classes and teach about the benefits of mindfulness. So that gave me a whole new spark in my job. While I was still in IT, that gave me that gave me my why at
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, oh, I really like doing this kind of work. I
Mhm.
like not only talking about things, but sharing with people, and then seeing folks explore on their own. And I think separate from that, I've always been intuitive. I
Yeah.
just didn't quite know what it meant.
Right.
but I've always been very energetically sensitive and intuitive. And it was really this awakening and
Yeah.
that made me realize what it was. And that intuition became, and my higher self talk came really
Yeah.
loud. And um, I think that is how I started to marry
Mhm.
everything together in a corporate job. I had teams of people. I started to manage differently. I started to
Mhm.
lead differently. I became much more confident and even creative in how I worked with people.
Mhm.
So I really leaned a lot more into that side of me. The creativity of it, believe it or not, fit in an IT world because we're
Yeah.
problem solvers. So
That's right. That's right. Right. You know, it's so funny because I've had a lot of my clients come from the IT world or be in the IT world. A lot of
mm,
CPAs, a lot of IT people, and IT people tend to be already naturally intuitive and sensitive. It's very
mhm,
interesting that you
yeah.
wouldn't connect it, but I mean, spirituality, science, technology, all those things are much more connected than we like to give credit for, or that society likes to give
Oh,
credit to.
and in the workspace, it's not stuff we talk about
Right. That's right.
really.
Hmm.
So my teaching of mindfulness and leading people in mindfulness was kind of my stealth way of working it in.
Yeah,
And then people begin to open up to you and talk about it, and you realize that
that's
people
right.
are thinking about it. They just
Mhm.
aren't really comfortable talking about it in the workplace. But
Right, because
it's
they don't want to seem
there.
crazy, right? That's what people don't want
Yeah.
to seem crazy because that's what our society has kind of that's the value it's given to this something that you can't see or touch or something that's a little deeper
Yeah.
than, even religion. So, yeah, very
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly. So,
So tell me more about you said you had always been sensitive and intuitive. Tell me more
yes.
about that.
I think when I think back to when I was young, I was also always very creative.
Mhm.
Something I had put on the back burner, and that's how I ended up as, and I can tell that story as a Cosmic Smashbook Guide, which is really spiritual art journaling.
Mhm.
Um, but that creativity and that sensitivity when I was younger, I was pretty much a loner. I was
Yeah.
always, I never had like a large group of friends. I always kept to myself, and I didn't quite know what it was.
Mhm.
But I realize now it was because I was just very sensitive and I didn't know how to handle it.
Yep.
So, I went inward. I'm definitely a child that lived in the worlds that I created.
Mhm.
Between reading and spending a lot of time out in the woods and nature.
Yeah.
And then my intuitive nature, even through all my different jobs, I always had this sense of who I could connect with,
Mhm.
or if I was participating in hiring people, just this innate sense of who would be a good fit and who
Yeah.
wouldn't. And I
Yes.
really didn't know what it was. I just knew that I had a knowing,
Right.
and I tended to I made a lot of decisions in my life based on that
Yeah.
knowing, not in my head, but in my heart and in my
Yeah.
gut. So, and I
Mhm.
still do. I
Yeah.
still do. So,
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm sure you understand it differently. Like before, it was just like a sense of feeling, but now it's
mhm.
like like this is right. Like before, it was like sense feeling, trust it, not trust it,
Just
question it, question, don't question it.
don't
But now it's
question it.
like you get it and you go
Get it
right.
and go. Get
Different.
it and go. Yes. If it's a yes, it's a yes. If
That's
it's a
right.
maybe, it's a no.
Yes.
Only if it's a, as they call it, a full body yes.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is correct. So,
That is, yeah.
so what was the first breadcrumb you followed? Like, what did you get? So you started with meditation and mindfulness, but what was after that? Like, what really called to you and opened
Uh,
you?
Probably was that it was energy work
Yeah.
actually, because I
Hmm.
had never experienced or felt energy. And when I started to work with somebody and suddenly was able to feel it not only in my body but elsewhere, then
Hmm.
literally everything changed for me.
Yeah.
It really just made me real. I remember that day. I'll never forget that day.
Hmm.
Um, that it was like oh, this is what's going on. And it really blew my mind in a way, because then I realized it went down this rabbit hole of, well, what's real? Everything's energy. Is anything real?
Mm-hmm.
So that, and I love to go down those rabbit holes of questions.
Yes.
But that was probably that first step. But that actually then led me into crystal work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and then I started exploring the work of crystals and how crystals could fit, and really for myself first, but
Yeah.
then realized that it was something that I wanted to be able to share with other people. So that's how I ended up in the crystal world,
Yeah.
so to speak. So
Uh-huh. Okay. And then the Smash Book stuff. That is super interesting. The Cosmic Smash Book. That's super
yeah, and
interesting.
that's like I said, I was always creative. I was always drawing,
Mhm.
always coloring when I was little.
Yeah.
And then I always had hobbies, creative hobbies. When I went to, so I ended up as part of this journey in a seminary, a 2-year seminary, One
Mm-hmm.
Spirit, and became an interfaith minister, essentially ministering to people spiritual but not religious, which is
Right.
how I define myself as well.
Yep.
And I stayed on for 2 years and did the interspiritual counseling program. And one of the modules we had was a creativity module.
Mm.
We did many modules over the 2 years, somatic work, sound healing, chakra work, all sorts of stuff. But the creativity one
Mm-hmm.
was like reignited my love of journaling. And I've always been a journaler, but I took a different perspective when I did it. As I had to do a project, and I decided to do an art journal on basically my life. And I
Mm-hmm.
took pictures of myself when I was a baby and
Mm-hmm.
with my parents, and I journaled and put myself into the pictures of what was happening in that picture, what were the emotions, the feelings, and artistically created a book.
Mm.
Um, and then shortly after I finished that program, I found out about cosmic smashbooking, which is essentially a very similar process
Mm-hmm.
of connecting with connecting with your higher self and bringing in divine energy to create an art journal book
Yeah.
that essentially is really just for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you necessarily share with anybody. And what I love about it is that you write and you journal and you cover all your words, and you create a book that's an energetic container for
Mm.
words and for emotions and for feelings. And then by covering the words with color and imagery, and you get messages from the divine, from your higher self, that come out in what you create.
Oh, I
And
love that.
through creating these essentially a portal in a book, and you don't need to be an art. There's no rules to it, really. There's no
Yeah.
artistic anything artsy needed. You use a very simple composition book, dollar composition book, but you create something that has an intention to it and an
Yeah.
energy to it that helps you heal in a different way. And I incorporate crystal energy into it when I do it as well. And that's one of my actually daily practices,
Wow.
is a daily page in my smash book. And I also work with, people, lead workshops and things like that. But it's also a wonderful community from people all over the world. Thousands of people that are in this community. And so I have now good friends now in Peru and in Great Britain that I've met through Cosmic Smashbooking. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's very, very cool. Like, it sounds really, really, like just a much better way to journal. Like, to really, like, because I think sometimes journaling is one of the big things that I prescribe to my clients. And often people don't know, like, because we think about, like, dear diary, blah blah blah, this is what happened
right,
today, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, when we were
yes,
kids, right? Like, so they don't really know, or don't get started, because it's just like, well, I don't know what to write. So just to kind of center yourself, ground yourself, really just write whatever it is, right? And not have any
Yeah.
rule must be so like cathartic
Yeah.
and like the release must be so much bigger because of that.
It is, and it's also an opportunity to let go of that inner critic because
Mhm. Mhm.
we on purpose take a book and we actually the very first thing you do is you smash up the pages. That's why it's called a smash book. You crinkle
Ah.
you crinkle them up so it starts imperfect.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah.
So that takes away the pressure,
Yes.
and gives you permission to make a mess and to
Mhm.
just see and to see what emerges. And I've had some significant aha moments kind of come out of that process of journaling. And then you actually, on top of that, you ask the divine, you write over your journal pages by asking the divine for guidance and assistance. And what do you need?
Yeah.
And then you cover it all with paint and images because the energy of your words is in there.
Right. Right.
So I, at any one time, I usually have 3 different books going, each with a different intention,
That's
depending
awesome.
on what's kind of
Mhm.
coming up for me.
Yeah. That's so cool. So cool. Do you so you said you do workshops for that as
I
well.
do, yes.
Do you have
Yeah.
anything coming up anytime soon, or do you have
In the
anything
fall,
planning?
I don't kind of taken the summer off
Yes.
because I am a
Good.
minister. I have a lot of weddings,
Weddings.
so wedding season.
Yeah.
But I will be offering, and I do offer that virtually as well as in person.
Good.
In the fall, I'm going to be offering probably a chakra journey is what I'm going to call it.
Ooh.
We're actually going to go through and create a book and then
Yeah.
kind of just go through all the different chakras and the energy of those chakras. And I'll bring in crystals, I'll bring in
Yeah.
essential oils. And that'll be a combination of online and recorded probably too. So people don't make
Awesome.
it live, and I do a one-off. I will do some things off and on there.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
So,
That sounds great. That sounds really really nice. So weddings. So I know. So you did the One Spirit. You got ordained
yep.
as a minister and a spiritual counselor through One Spirit. And
Yes.
was that the goal to be like one of the top
No,
wedding officials? Okay. So
not at all. Not at all. I went to seminary really for myself
yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was 2 years of really deep inner work. And that's really why I
Mhm.
went. Because and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. I really didn't have any intention of doing
Right.
anything necessarily. I
Right.
knew I knew there was some kind of healing journey, healing path. Because I was looking ahead. I said,
Yeah.
I'm not going to work in corporate forever. What am I going to do next?
Mhm. Mhm.
But it was really not being a wedding officiant necessarily. But after I was ordained, um, through referrals and and mentorship, I ended up getting having weddings come my way, and then I
Yeah.
did them and say, oh, I really enjoy this, and what I enjoy about it is the creativity because I
Yeah.
write, I write the custom write the ceremonies for the couples and getting to know them and writing the ceremony that reflects them.
Yeah.
And no two ceremonies are ever the same, is what I found that I really, really enjoy. And then I've also had the opportunity, which I also enjoy in a different way, very
Mhm.
different way, is celebration of life sessions. I've
Mm.
done several of those, and
Okay.
it's very different,
Yeah.
but it's also, tuning into the person who you're honoring and serving the family and creating that container and that space
Mhm.
for grief and joy and all the things that come up.
Right.
Um, so yes, I do those as well, and
Yeah.
that's my primary ministry, so to speak. Although all the modalities I work in, creativity and the crystal dreaming work and the other light therapy work I do, really to me fall under the kind of global umbrella of spiritual direction, spiritual
Yeah.
counseling. There's kind of lots of ways to
Mhm.
call it,
Mhm.
lots of things to call it, but
Right. Many labels, but
yeah,
all really just for people's healing and,
that's it.
moving forward on their journeys. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
All
Yeah,
of it. Yeah. The ministry, doing the weddings, all of that. It's pushing and helping people move forward on their journeys. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, even the celebration of life, right? Helping the
It
ones
is.
that stay behind move forward on their journey and helping
Absolutely.
that person's
Ab-
spirit move, from here
Yeah.
to the
You
next.
know, and yeah, and it's really an honor in both cases to be able to, from on the marriage side,
Yeah.
launch couples into what's next for them, and then in the celebration of life, help people process and
Mm,
acknowledge the life that's these lives that have been very well lived, and some are tragic, and some are,
yeah.
expected, and some aren't, and um, but just being able to hold space for that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, we choose this journey. Well, the journey chooses us because we chose it at some point in time, right? Um, how how have the people around you navigated this journey with you? Because sometimes, not sometimes, when we are on this journey we change, right? Our energy changes. I mean, you talked about that, where you
Mhm.
changed as a leader when you were in the corporate world. Got you were able to hold space in a much better way for people. And sometimes that happens with people we don't know, but sometimes
Right.
with the people that we love and know, it's a little
Mhm.
uncomfortable, or not, they join us. So, like, how did the people, and not to get super personal, but I'd like to explore that side of it too, because sometimes things do fall away,
Yeah,
and
they
that can
can,
be sad and
absolutely.
lonely and all those things. And then sometimes things, relationships and stuff, get better and bigger and more enhanced. So, just briefly,
Yeah.
how have you seen the people around you kind of flow or not flow in your journey?
That is an interesting question, because I've always been, and I still am to an extent, it's like somewhat of a loner in a way. I have a very, very, very small circle
Yeah.
of friends, and I find that, and it's, you asked this, and I was literally just thinking about this today, about my um I think what's changed, this is kind of a backwards answer.
Hmm.
What's changed is I'm much more comfortable with myself in a lot of ways. In a lot of
Okay.
ways, I am. But I'm also much more aware of where my opportunities are
Yeah.
for my own growing edge as well. So
Hmm.
that makes relationships interesting, because I do believe that all relationships they're always mirroring back to us, right?
That's right.
So
Hmm.
um I think I view relationships a lot differently now than I did
Hmm.
years ago. And because of that, I think I'm also more conscious of how I do, of who I spend my time with, I guess.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
much more conscious and selective,
Yeah.
and I because I protect myself,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I understand now the impact that other people may have on me. So
That's.
sometimes we make choices about who we spend our time with and who we don't, and we do that from a place of love and compassion
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
for ourselves. So not sure I answered your question, but that's kind of how things have changed. It's really
Yeah, no, I think that was
yeah,
a great answer to the question. Yeah. It's like, you say you've always kept your circles, um, you
yeah,
know,
fairly small.
relatively small, which makes sense when you're sensitive and protecting your energy. Um, you know, for me, it's been the opposite. I've always had big circles, but doing this work, they've gotten smaller and
No,
smaller and smaller. And it's because I've shifted, right? Like, my
right.
energy has shifted, and not because these people are not great people. They're still awesome people. It's just
Mhm.
different wavelengths, but
Yep.
still relatable, but not as relatable probably as, you know, I in the past, maybe like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right? Just we grow and evolve, and things, and real friendships will stay there. They'll just grow and
Right.
evolve too.
Yeah. In
Yeah,
different
so
ways, and we stay right,
that's
and
right.
we stay in different ways. And I'm very fortunate that I have three sisters, and
Mhm.
and while we're all very different,
Yes.
I'm very different than the other three, and that's fine.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
my you know,
Yeah.
and my daughter is, I think is supportive and curious, not necessarily into all this,
Yeah.
but that's fine too.
She's like, I'll support you, mom, but I'm gonna be right over here.
Yeah. No, I mean,
'Cause
like,
I'm not ready to wave my weird flag yet, right?
not yet, but she'll say, but she'll see something like, this crystal store just opened. You might be, and that's the
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
That's
it's,
I like that. I like that.
yeah.
She's yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And it's not for everybody, right? I mean, it
No,
needs to be, but it's not for everybody. It needs to be
I
for
know.
everybody and on different degrees and whatever feels right to that person because I just think growth
Yes.
is necessary, whatever that looks like. But there has to be a want to grow in some way, shape, or form and not be scared to look within. And I think,
Yeah.
that's what so many people are afraid of is that look within, right? I mean, you went to One Spirit and it was big heavy work for 2 years, and
Yeah.
that's a lot. People don't want to do big heavy work for 2 minutes, let alone two
Yeah. It
years
ended up because I stayed for 2 years. It was 4 years. So
yeah, or
yeah.
more, like whatever.
Mm.
People don't want to do it for 2 minutes, like
In
they
two
don't.
minutes, I know.
So it's like,
Yeah. And
so yeah.
once you start doing it, you kind
Hmm.
of always do it,
That's
right?
right.
You're
Yeah.
always, reflecting back on things that happened and oh, why did I react to that way?
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
becomes a kind of a, because I believe that the universe, it's a constant feedback loop,
That's right.
constant. And when you start to live that way, it can be a little, it can be exciting, it can be a little unsettling,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
but
Especially in those growing edges, right? Those growing edges because like we've often talked about the cycle of growth, the
Mhm.
expansion, the processing, that horrible processing part of it, then
Yeah.
the okay, I got this, and then the kind of that blissful I really got this. But that people don't want to be in that processing phase, but that's the
Yeah.
most important phase, right? That
Right.
darkness, dark night of the soul, whatever it is you want to call it, but it's those periods in time of like being that seed in that dark space to be able to germinate and grow, but a lot
Right.
of people, it
It's
can be
not
quite painful.
comfortable.
Right.
Yeah. It's not fun
Nah,
usually, but
but
you
it's
know
worth it.
that but
Yeah.
it is worth it because you
Mhm.
know that
Right.
this too shall pass.
That's right.
It
Right.
all,
You
yeah,
only know this too shall pass if you allow yourself to go through it, right? With the
absolutely
people
right.
that don't want to go through it and keep going back to the old stuff because they don't want to go through the darkness or through whatever that is, the processing phase, don't know or realize that this too shall pass. You
Yeah.
know, they don't allow themselves to get there, or
No.
they do and they just don't see it because they're still worried about what has just transpired and not living in the moment.
In the moment, right. Right, which, just getting out of the past and not
Mm-hmm.
worrying about the future, but reminding yourself that, it's we really only have right now, and
Yeah, that's right.
connect into that right now, and,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And the
yeah.
more we lean into it, the easier it becomes. Still uncomfortable. This is what I tell people all the time. Still uncomfortable, not rainbows and ponies,
No.
but it'll be much
It
easier
does
to
get
get.
easier though,
Yeah.
it's like the processing. Yeah, I mean, it's like, "Okay, I'm going through this," and it does
Yes.
tend to get a bit, I'll say it's still hard, but
Yeah.
there's a little more ease to it
Yes.
because you're not fighting it.
Yes. There's
You're
glimmers
leaning.
of light where it's like, oh my
Right.
God, this feels so sucky. And
Yeah,
also I know that this is part of my growth. So like it's like you
exactly.
can talk yourself out of it and not stay
Yeah.
in it
Yeah,
all day long. So
exactly. Yes, and that
yeah.
just comes from experience.
That's right. That's right. And doing it, right? Doing the work.
Yeah.
All right. So awesome. I thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. So I have three questions that I usually ask my guests. So the first one is, so what lights you up? It's a big question, and it could
It's a
be
big
you could have so
question,
many
and,
answers, right?
on one hand, I could say I'm hungry right now, so anything, like, food related would light me up, but no,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here looking out my office window and I see trees. I think at this right now in my life, what lights
Hmm.
me up is silence in
Hmm.
nature,
Hmm. Yeah,
a silence, and yeah,
I
yeah.
feel that. Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that's where I am right now.
Yep. I completely agree with that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Next question is, okay, knowing what you know now,
Hmm.
what advice do you have for your younger self?
Uh, I would say, um, I would say something along the lines of believing in yourself more than I
Mm,
did. You
mhm,
know, yeah. I mean, I wanted to be, I wanted to go to art school, right? I wanted to, and then I ended up in IT. It's just, so I had a good career. I made a living, but because I never believed that I could do anything else or that I
mhm,
was be worthy of anything else. I think
mhm.
there's a lot. I think that if I could say anything, it would be that
Yeah.
believe in yourself and keep that. If I, kept that creativity and that openness flowing instead of, moving into survival mode like I did for so long and I just shut stuff off.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe it would have been earlier than 55 that I would have went this path, but all the same, it's fine now. But I think that's what I would have
Yeah.
asked myself to do.
Yeah, maybe it would have been earlier than 55, but
Maybe,
I think
maybe
I
not.
think our timing is as perfect as it needs to
It
be,
is. But if I
Yeah.
could tell myself something, I would have been like,
Yeah. You would have told yourself something and be like, "Yeah, right, whatever," and kept
yeah,
moving.
I need a
Right?
job.
And who knows, maybe you did. There was a point in time where you were like, truly believe, but then these other parts were like that, you know. But yeah, no,
Reality. But then there's reality in living,
that's
and
right.
and
That's
and,
right.
and I do believe that we all make the best decisions we can from
That's
where
right.
we are, and I did my whole life.
That's right.
But if
That's
I
right.
couldn't say anything, this is what I would have
Yeah,
said.
yeah, that's right. Believe in yourself. That's yeah,
Believe in myself.
exactly that.
Yeah.
And then the last question is, what advice would you have for the younger generation these days? Because they have it so rough and so different than
Very,
we did. So, like,
very different.
yeah,
Um, I would say it's that everything's going to be fine.
yeah,
That everything
everything
is
always
really
works
going to
out.
be fine.
Hmm.
And it is hard. I do teach a course,
Hmm.
community college course,
Oh, nice.
computer science. So I have had the opportunity to be around, people who, out of high school, a few years out of high school, and it is very difficult
Hmm.
this world is just so different.
Yeah,
Um, but just letting them know that it will be fine. It may not be easy right now, but it will be fine.
that's right.
And to just enjoy the moment when
Hmm.
you're in it, and try not to get, you know, too caught up in the what ifs
Yeah.
and
And the
everything.
comparison, right? Comparing
Yeah,
themselves to others, because that's what one of the hardest things they have. This
absolutely.
generation has is the comparison. They just have so much access to comparison. Like,
It's all that it is. It's all the
yeah.
time, right?
Yeah, it's
With social
so it's
media
so
and
hard.
everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, so hard. So yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love that. And I just want to again thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this right before
Oh,
dinner.
thank you. Oh, yeah.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you, and
Thank you.
I can't wait to take more classes with you. We have one coming up
Yep.
this week. I'm very excited.
Yes.
And spending
Yeah.
more time with you. So
Yep.
thank you, thank you. I
Thank
appreciate you.
you. Thank you. I appreciate you too.
All right,
And thank
thanks.
you.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
All right.